In my past life, I devoted everything to Crown Prince Zale, scheming only to place him upon the celestial throne, yet when he returned from battle, he brought back a century-old koi spirit, claiming she was his destined savior. He vowed to make her celestial empress, even gifting her my chance to leap the dragon gate. Though I opposed them at every turn, he cradled the dying koi while condemning me as a scheming, wicked creature, stripped of my 10,000-year cultivation. Our entire dragonkin clan was cast into hell, 3,000 lives devoured by the gluttonous Taotai like dried sweet potato chips. When my eyes reopened, I calmly proclaimed, "Congratulations, your majesty, on gaining such a fair maiden." Crimson filled my vision, the searing pain remained, iron chains still piercing through my collarbones, pinning me mercilessly against the cliff face. Our clansmen wailed in torment, their golden cores impaled by chains as they dangled over hell's abyss. Molten fire churning below, the gluttonous beast bared its jagged fangs, reeking of decay. It devoured our kin one by one, crunching bones between its teeth while screams of agony filled the air. Clutching my brother's demon core, I felt hot tears streak down my cheeks for the first time in my life. They evaporated instantly in the volcanic heat before they could crystallize into pearls. "Ember, why the hesitation?" Zale's voice cut like ice. "I said I shall take Lyra as my celestial empress." A familiar voice reached my ears. I clutched my chest, swaying unsteadily as I took a step back. My eyes widened in realization as I took in the palace surroundings. I've returned, back to the moment when Zale had just returned from war, stubbornly insisting on making that koi spirit, fished God knows where from some pond, his empress. Despite vehement opposition from all court officials, my younger brother Kellen stood behind me, his anger boiling over, though merely 2,000 years my junior. He's the mightiest warrior of the Naga tribe and Zale's fiercest general, raised by me since childhood. He shares the deepest bond with me. He stepped forward and bellowed, "Zale, you heartless scoundrel, my sister gave you her undying devotion. What did she ever do to deserve this? If not for her risking her life to save you, you'd have never defeated Crown Prince your brother. You'd be rotting at the bottom of the frozen sea instead of standing here today. If not for my sister exhausting all efforts to unite the clans for you, how could you have possibly gathered such a formidable army after you vanished from the battlefield? If not for my sister suppressing her grief to steady the troops, devising a brilliant strategy to crush the Crown Prince's celestial forces in one stroke, how could you have waltzed back from war straight into the celestial throne? Didn't you swear it yourself? My sister, sharp as winter frost, a serpent demon yet peerless across all realms, you vowed to crown her celestial empress when you ascended, to share eternity's embrace. Now that your ambition's fulfilled, you discard my sister and my serpentkin army without hesitation. The rabbit's dead, so the hound goes into the pot. Is that your game? A flicker of guilt crossed Zale's handsome face as he avoided meeting my gaze. He slowly lowered his head, and I knew he was hesitating, the koi spirit in his arms, dressed in simple white robes of ethereal beauty, immediately tried to push him away upon seeing this. "Zale," she said softly, "if you've already pledged your heart to another, why did you ever pursue me?" Her voice trembled as unshed tears glistened in her eyes. "I merely saved your life, nothing compared to what the sister has shared with you through thick and thin. Finding you in the lotus pond that day must have been fate's cruel jest. Now that our bond is severed, let us part here. You shall reign as celestial emperor, while I remain a lowly demon. You're a dragon, I'm but a fish. Mortal demons live fleeting lives, unworthy of your eternity. May we never meet again in this life or the next." Her feeble push melted into Zale's crushing embrace. He kissed her tenderly and whispered, "No, Lyra, this is your tribulation, but is it not also mine? I'd rather betray the world than fail you. You say you're a mermaid, but as the celestial queen, you'll ascend from fish to dragon, gaining eternal life. We'll reign over all three realms together." Lyra choked back tears. "I only want to be your one and only wife, to stay by your side forever. I care not for leaping through the dragon gate or becoming any queen." Zale caressed her face tenderly and said, "Silly girl, how else can you stay by my side for eternity if you don't leap through the dragon gate?" While they were still lost in each other, Kellen erupted in fury. "You shameless bastard, my sister has poured her heart and soul into this for millennia without achieving dragonhood, and now she's supposed to hand it over to some nobody who crawled out of nowhere. The world doesn't work that way." Zale's expression darkened as he flicked his sleeve, unleashing a crushing wave of spiritual energy toward Kellen. The force drove Kellen to one knee, yet he stubbornly refused to apologize. Beads of cold sweat rolling down his face, with a casual wave of my hand, I deflected the spiritual pressure. Kellen sprang up instantly, freed from the weight. Zale's gaze shifted to me, a flicker of wariness crossing his features. "After all these years I've lived, though most of my efforts went into aiding his usurpation, my cultivation hasn't lagged behind. Not even he can gauge my current strength. The ministers behind me are restless. This faction I built with my own hands naturally follows my lead. One word from me, And they'd scramble to petition Zale to make me queen, yet this isn't what I desired. In my past life, driven by ambition, I rallied my followers to pressure Zale. In his wrath, he invoked the Celestial Emperor's authority to strip thousands of their immortal bones, casting them into the mortal realm, crippling my allies beyond recovery. Thus when the Serpent Clan faced annihilation, not a single faction lifted a finger to help. No, I'll await my words. With measured composure, I proclaimed. Congratulations on your Majesty's joyous union. May the Celestial Emperor and Empress remain eternally devoted, blessed with everlasting prosperity. A flicker of astonishment crossed Zale's perpetually composed eyes. He never anticipated my swift concession. No tearful lamentations, no heart-wrenching despair. He couldn't help but ask, "Ember, you truly don't object?" "Object to what?" I replied. His Majesty declared this a heaven-ordained match. Wouldn't opposing it defy divine will? Zale's expression darkened before he finally spoke. "Ember, I've known since childhood how deeply you care for me, and I for you, though I cannot make you empress. Granting you the title of imperial consort would be fitting compensation." I chuckled. "No need for that. Your Majesty has already found your destined one. I'm hardly desperate for a matchmaker's red thread. Let's not waste each other's time." As he reached to grab me, I sidestepped lightly, my sleeve slipping through his fingers. The jade pool was veiled in immortal mist, with lotus blossoms standing gracefully above emerald leaves. I lay napping in the pavilion, using scrolls as my pillow, in my drowsy state. I drifted back to childhood, when I was still a young water serpent in the East Sea's crystal palace, and Zale merely an egg resting in a crystal coffin. The Dragon King was speaking with my father. Callan hadn't taken human form yet, just a scrawny little serpent coiled around my arm, flicking its tongue, peering through the thick crystal at that jade-like egg radiating light. I found it utterly adorable. "He's been blessed with striking good looks since childhood. What's this?" I asked the Dragon King's elder brother. "My cousin," said the Dragon King's brother, "the Celestial Emperor's seed. Our aunt nearly perished bringing forth this egg, sacrificing her very soul to preserve it, yet for centuries it refused to hatch. Now that the new Empress has born a prince, this thing might as well be a lifeless stone, since when do lifeless stones glow with such radiance?" "Open the casket," I demanded. "Let me see whether it lives or not." The Dragon King couldn't refuse my persistence and ordered the crystal lid lifted. The egg tumbled into my warm palms, and the moment I cupped it, the shell cracked open with a crisp snap. The dragon maids and Yikshas shrieked in terror, fearing catastrophe, but undaunted, I peeled back the shards to reveal a tiny black dragon blinking up at me, its downy horns still soft. How could I not adore him? He was hatched by the warmth of my own hands. Mine were the first eyes he saw when entering this world. Millennia slipped by in a daze. Chants echoed through the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King's elder brother had invited a venerable master from the Western Paradise to expound Buddhist teachings. The Arhat, round and plump, mumbled scriptures while the disciples below stifled yawns. Kellen had already slumped over the table asleep. Drowsiness clawed at me. Yet when I glanced sideways, the youth remained transfixed by the scripture scrolls, his eyes dark as lacquer, slender fingers pale as jade gripping the tome. Delight bubbled within me as I poked him lightly, whispering, "Zale, aren't you weary? Let me show you a magic trick." His eyes remained fixed on the book as his lips silently formed the words, "Ember, what mischief are you plotting now?" I giggled and whispered, "Let's swipe that monk's water-repelling pearl and sneak off to the ocean surface during the chaos." "What do you say?" He lifted his long lashes, visibly torn. With a flick of my finger, the treasure resting on the lotus pedestal vanished into thin air. Deprived of his pearl, the rotund monk immediately bobbed upward like an overinflated pig's bladder. Pandemonium erupted in the crystal palace as I grabbed Zale's hand and darted toward the sea's surface. Night had fallen. In the distance beyond the mountains, we could see the human marketplace aglow with countless lanterns. It was the Ghost Festival mid-July, when lotus lanterns drifted downriver to the sea, their gentle glow transforming the dark waters into a starry expanse. I cupped one in my hands and inhaled deeply, only to catch the scent of wax. Spitting in disappointment, I sighed. The texts speak of lotus's pure fragrance that carries far, yet human craft, however clever, can't capture their essence. Pity we can't go ashore to behold the true Buddha. Zale stared at me, lost in thought. With an amused smile, I asked, "What are you looking at?" He blurted out, "Ember looks like a celestial maiden descended from heaven." I laughed heartily but chided him. "I'm a sea serpent demon who's lived in the ocean all my life. I've survived century-long fire tribulations and millennium-spanning wind calamities through solid cultivation, but even I'll perish when facing the 10,000-year thunder tribulation. How could I possibly compare to the fairies of the heavenly court?" Zale asked blankly. You can die. I rolled my eyes. Dragons live as long as heaven and earth. How could you understand the suffering of us demon beasts? Zale fell silent, then declared resolutely, you won't die. When a beast spirit becomes a dragon's mate, they gain one chance to leap the dragon gate. Shedding their beastly form, they forge bones of true dragonkind. Ember, I vow to take you as my one and only wife, for eternity. We shall never part. My heart shuddered as I heard him say, the lotus blossoms in the jade pool are exquisite. When I become the celestial emperor and you the empress, we shall admire them together every day. By then, you could even sleep amidst the lotus pond. Your dreams would be filled with their delicate fragrance. The new empress and the crown prince subjected him to endless humiliation, barring him from the heavenly palace and forbidding him to see our father, though his words were reckless bravado. This single phrase has echoed in my heart for millennia. Hellfire erupted in roaring flames, its stench of charred flesh shattering the peace. I jolted awake, still in the jade pool pavilion, my heart pounding violently. As I straightened up, a gentle feminine voice murmured, Zale, doesn't this lotus pond remind you of the little pool where we first met? Zale said, it does look like it. Looking up, Zale and Lyra were admiring flowers by the poolside. While the heavenly queen nestled in the emperor's embrace, the heavenly palace isn't all that special, Lyra said sweetly. Why don't we go back to the mortal world for a few days? I'll give you little Zales and little Lyras. How does that sound? Things that come too easily are often taken for granted. The celestial jade pool I'd dreamed of for half a lifetime was dismissed as nothing special, in her words. Zale leaned in to kiss her affectionately. Just as they were about to get intimate in broad daylight, I quickly cleared my throat and rose from the pavilion. Spotting me, Zale froze awkwardly and subtly pushed Lyra away. Only when she gasped did he realize his blunder and pulled her back into his arms. Ember, he stammered. What are you doing here? I grabbed the case files from the table and waved them before his eyes. The celestial emperor is newlywed and preoccupied. I'm merely sharing his majesty's burdens. It's always been this way. He's long grown accustomed to delegating all affairs to me while he plays the absentee ruler, Zale replied. Understood. Lyra's eyes darted mischievously as she clutched Zale's lapel, nestling against him to whisper, Zale, my centennial fire tribulation approaches. Zale nodded. Ember, make arrangements for the celestial empress dragon gate ascension soon. Her cultivation is still shallow. She can't endure such trials. I couldn't help but laugh. Every creature that ascends to demonhood endures countless trials, a mere century of fire tribulation. Even an earthworm could withstand that. If you can't bear such hardship, you're unworthy of being a demon, let alone the celestial empress of all realms. More crucially, the so-called Dragon Gate ritual requires a dragon to sacrifice half their spiritual bones to forge the gate for their mate's ascension. Zale would lose most of his cultivation. The new celestial emperor hasn't even endured his 81 heavenly strikes yet. Is he trying to get reduced to a charred husk when his tribulation comes? I reminded him calmly, Your Majesty, your heavenly tribulation takes precedence. Doesn't matter. Zale waved dismissively. As long as Lyra's safe and sound. He looked up at me. Besides, Ember, you'll figure something out for me, right? Yeah. I've always been the one figuring things out for him, in my past life. I tried everything to stop him for his own good, but nothing worked. He even suspected I was jealous of Lyra, deliberately standing in her way to prevent her from rising to greatness. I couldn't just stand by and watch that koi fish undergo its metamorphosis, reborn anew. When the 9 heavenly thunderbolts struck, it was my monstrous form that bore the brunt of them for him, too. I never expected tearful gratitude, but at the very least, he shouldn't have seized the chance to slaughter my entire kin while I lay gravely wounded. With a noncommittal hum, I replied, The seal at Hell's Maw is weakening, Your Majesty. I must investigate soon. Zale would naturally permit my departure, for the one imprisoned beyond Hell's Maw was the person he feared most, Crown Prince Lennox. Born a century earlier, Lennox was the prime contender for the next celestial emperor. His cultivation surpassed all, having nearly slain Zale in their duel. Had I not tricked him into the abyss's maw to seal him away, the outcome would still hang in the balance. Like most phoenixes, his beauty burned fierce and radiant, though long imprisoned with heavy chains binding his glorious wings. His eyes still blazed with unbroken ambition. When Lennox saw me, he laughed outright. If it isn't my brother's little strategist, he sneered, you're the one who reduced me to this state, and now you've come to mock me. The hellish magma churned beneath my feet. When I lowered my gaze, I could hear the howls of the Tautai, stirring memories of carnage. Aren't you afraid? I asked. Lennox gave an almost imperceptible shudder. An ancient beast of calamity, he said, his face ashen. No one across the 3 realms dares face it without fear. Thankfully, it's trapped in the underworld. No one would dare breach the barrier to set it loose. Lennox asked me, what brings you here? After a moment's thought, I replied, Zale has taken another queen. So I can no longer leap the Dragon Gate, yet my 10,000-year lifespan is nearing its end, and as a demon, I still face the 10,000-year heavenly tribulation. Lennox raised an eyebrow. So you came to me. The phoenix is an immortal bird, I said calmly. Help me survive the heavenly tribulation, and I'll break the seal to free you from this hellmouth. Lennox laughed mockingly. Demons will always be demons. Utterly devoid of honor. Weren't you utterly devoted to Zale? And yet here you are, bargaining with me just to save your own skin. The Celestials have no say in demon affairs, I said coldly. This deal, are you taking it or not? Are you truly willing to hand over the Celestial throne to another? I don't believe it. Of course I'll take it, Lennox strolled lazily, but I'll add one condition. Trapped here, my cultivation has suffered greatly. I may not be strong enough to defeat my dear brother upon release. A phoenix isn't just an immortal bird, it's the finest cultivation vessel. Dual cultivation with one would greatly enhance both our powers. They say Ember is one of the three realms' rarest mines. His fingers brushed my cheek, but it seems they've overlooked something. You're also one of its rarest beauties. With 10 millennia of cultivation, dual cultivation with me would not only restore my lost power, but grant you the essence of the phoenix, a nourishment rivaling dragon bones. I said coldly, get on with it if you're doing this. Lennox stroked my icy hair, murmuring, Ember, should I become the Celestial Emperor, I'll never forsake you. I pushed his hand away, gathering my robes. First, you must ascend the Celestial throne. On the 18th of April, Zale shall sever half his divine essence to forge the Dragon Gate for Lyra. The most auspicious moment has come. I'll await you at the southern heavenly gate. On the 18th day, celestial beings gathered at the heavenly palace, standing beneath the southern gate in my azure robes. I received the clan leader's obeisances and flattery in Zale's stead. He'd no patience for such trifles. Kellen gazed at me and blurted, Sister, your radiance grows daily, your cultivation soars, yet your majesty deepens. Today at the Dragon Gate ceremony, you alone deserve to become the Celestial Empress. I chuckled. Oh really? The altar stood ready. The imperial couple ascended hand in hand, drawing an elixir from my sleeve. I offered it to Zale. Your Majesty, this will help you shed half your dragon bones. Lyra nestled against him tenderly. Zale, do this for me. Zale's hand trembled as he took the elixir, then suddenly met my gaze with intensity. Ember, he rarely called me that after growing up. I paused when I heard him say, since childhood, I've never dared to trust anyone else, only Ember, whatever you ask of me. I believe without question. After a moment of silence, I said, Zale, eat it. This is your choice. He swallowed it whole, his face contorted in pain. Amidst a crimson glow, golden dragon bones slowly emerged. I formed my hand into a blade and swiftly severed half, gripping it in my palm, gasping in pain. Zale urged, hurry, forge the gate for the Celestial Queen. I cast the dragon bones onto the altar and chanted the incantation. Instantly, a magnificent golden dragon-headed gate materialized. Lyra's eyes shone with excitement, her gaze locked on the spectacle. Were she not supporting Zale, she would have dashed toward it in ecstasy. At that moment, a thunderous boom shook the heavens as Lennox soared above the southern heavenly gate, leading countless winged warriors in his wake. Their menacing presence loomed like storm clouds threatening to crush the city beneath them. The crowd erupted into panicked cries, descending into chaos, as Kellen stepped forward to engage. I intercepted him with an outstretched arm and a firm shake of my head, gritting through excruciating pain. Zale staggered to his feet, shielding Lyra behind him as he roared, Guards, protect the Celestial Queen at once. Then came an icy sensation between his shoulder blades, a blade piercing clean through his chest. Turning, he saw Lyra gripping the dagger's hilt, her face eerily expressionless. Lyra, you, Zale choked out in disbelief before blood gushed from his mouth. Lennox boomed with laughter, beckoning, Lyra, come here. Lyra darted forward, leaping to Lennox's side as he pulled her into an embrace. With a coquettish voice, she murmured, Lennox, what took you so long? Enduring that fool's company made every waking moment unbearable. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke. Lennox gently drew her closer, whispering, You've suffered for my sake. Lyra, your cleverness in offering yourself was invaluable. Without it, we couldn't have crippled half his cultivation. Zale coughed up blood, his face ashen, before roaring in fury and lunging forward. With a mere flick of his wrist, Lennox unleashed a surge of spiritual energy, pinning him helplessly to the ground. The Avian Legion had completely surrounded the southern heavenly gate. The battle was lost. Suddenly remembering something, Lennox glanced down at me, his eyes glinting with derision. Woman, did you actually think I'd marry you? Unlike Zale with his wandering eye, the title of Celestial Empress belongs to Lyra, my constant companion. To be fooled twice, you're not half as clever as the legends claim. The only reason I wanted you was to spite Lyra for being forced to endure Zale's company. I lifted my gaze to meet his, voice eerily calm. Who the hell wants a winged bastard like you? With a clap of my hands, the incantation scroll in my palm snapped. Prelate formations shattered the seals as the Tautai roared from molten depths, hell's fury incarnate surging toward the heavenly realm, charging straight at the gods who'd imprisoned it. Lennox paled in horror, roaring as he drew his sword to meet the challenge. Amidst the chaos, I stepped forward and ascended the altar. The golden dragon gate shimmered resplendently. What I never told Zale was this: in my past life, I trained night and day to rightfully endure the 10,000-year tribulation through my own strength, ascending to divinity to sit as the celestial empress by his side, weathering the 9 heavens' thunderstrikes together. How could true love bear to shatter half his spiritual foundation just to forge my rebirth? Leaping the dragon gate was never my desire, but times have changed. Once my heart turns cold, all realms, celestial and terrestrial, shall become my instruments. With a single step across, the dragon bones melted into my shoulder blades, painless, unexpectedly gentle and warm, like a young boy's whisper. Ember, tears welled up unexpectedly, yet what fell were no dragon's pearls. My body turned weightless and translucent, reborn anew, with the cosmos' infinite power now pulsing in my palm. Dragon bones and phoenix marrow, all tempered within my flesh, I've ascended beyond godhood, surpassing Zale, eclipsing Lennox. Even the celestial sovereigns of antiquity pale before me. Turning back, I saw the avian clans in ruins, the gluttonous Tautai still crunched audibly, Lennox's half-wing and Lyra's pink robes wedged between its teeth. At my glance, it hesitated, then nuzzled my foot like a tamed hound before spitting out the phoenix bones with a wet plop. I stroked its head, the celestial beings froze in place, then, led by Kellen, they all dropped to their knees in reverence before me. I accepted their homage without hesitation. Turning around, I saw Zale still collapsed on the ground, pale-faced, his eyes widening slowly with dawning realization. Ember, Ember, he whispered hoarsely, you knew all along, didn't you? Yes, I'd known from the beginning. In my past life, I uncovered Lyra's suspicious identity. She'd been serving as a maid in the Crown Prince's palace, despite my grievous injuries. I risked everything to warn you, yet when faced with irrefutable proof, all she had to do was shed crocodile tears and leap off the immortal execution platform. You flew into a rage, cradling her half-dead form while condemning me as a scheming, wicked creature. Stripped of my scales and cultivation, I knelt before you for my clan's sake, meeting your gaze through unshed tears. I swore, however cunning I may be, never have I turned my schemes against you, yet our entire clan was stripped naked, threaded onto a celestial chain like grotesque beads, and hung from hell's cliff as living bait for the gluttonous Tautai. No humiliation was spared, no agony left unfelt. Lennox and Lyra deceived you. That's on your own stupidity. Stupidity isn't the worst, it's when stupidity meets cruelty. After committing irreparable mistakes, one must pay the price for their errors. Thunder roared across the sky as the 81 lightning tribulations he owed arrived belatedly, ready to reduce everything to ashes. Zale writhed helplessly on the ground, unable to even lift himself. Panic and terror flashed across his face before he suddenly cried out, Ember, Ember, save me, please. I whispered, Zale, you're not a child anymore. You must learn to repay your own debts, even if it costs you a lifetime. The 9 heavenly thunderbolts came crashing down, and when I turned back, only a charred corpse remained. Now, you shall address me as the Celestial Emperor. Story 2. In our past life, my sister fell head over heels for a powerful and gorgeous firefox, while I was forced to choose a weak and ugly white fox. Little did I know, my white fox turned out to be the legendary 9-tailed fox, transforming into a breathtakingly handsome form. Meanwhile, the firefox transformed into an ordinary-looking creature, failed its heavenly tribulation, and dragged my sister into mortal danger. Consumed by jealousy, my sister poisoned me when I tried to save her. Given a second chance at life, she eagerly embraced the white fox, leaving the firefox to me. Little did my sister know, the white fox fed on life essence, with a cruel and cunning nature. This time, let her endure those inhuman torments in my stead. 1. Vera's family possesses wealth rivaling nations and wields immense power, yet its members are cursed with naturally short lifespans. To remedy this flaw, their ancestors devised a solution, forming life-sharing pacts with beast folk. In return, Vera's family provides cultivation resources and protection for the Beastfolk clans. Though I'm the legitimate eldest daughter, father favors my younger sister more. She was born from his childhood sweetheart and cousin. On our coming-of-age day, the Beastfolk sent us 2 eligible foxes to choose from. In our previous life, my sister immediately took a liking to the tall, powerful fire fox and formed a contract with it on the spot. Left with no choice, I had to form a contract with the white fox Blaze. To everyone's surprise, the beautiful and powerful Zephyr turned out rather plain-looking after transformation. Though my sister regretted her choice, our father reminded her that one can only contract a single beastfolk in Vera's family. Resigned, she ended up keeping several handsome male companions instead. To my astonishment, my contracted spirit Blaze with his striking beauty, turned out to be the legendary nine-tailed fox. Consumed by jealousy, my sister would frequently visit under the pretense of spending time with me, all while subtly trying to seduce the white fox. Later, when Zephyr failed his heavenly tribulation, my sister got caught in the aftermath and was left hovering between life and death. Father threatened me with mother's life to force me to save her. But when I went to my sister's rescue, she poisoned me instead. I'll never know where my sister found that poison, but it dissolved my flesh alive. The pain was unbearable. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself sitting unharmed in the parlor, my sister clinging to our father like a spoiled child. Against all odds, I'd been reborn, returned to the very day we were to select our orc companions. I lowered my gaze to hide my turmoil. Soon after, the orc chieftain entered the hall with 2 foxes in tow. My sister straightened slightly, her eyes gleaming as she looked at Blaze, and declared firmly, "Father, I choose the white fox." Startled by my sister's voice, I turned to look at her, only to be met with an eye roll. So my sister had been reborn too. Hearing her choice, Father hesitated. "This white fox is rather scrawny and unimpressive, nothing compared to the fire fox. Are you sure about this?" A glint of malice flashed in Blaze's eyes at those words, his head bowing low. Yet I caught sight of his clenched fists at his sides. Hiding my smirk behind the teacup, seeing my sister's insistence, Father relented with a heavy sigh. My sister gleefully dashed to Blaze, embracing him before shooting me a triumphant look, sealing a master-servant pact with him on the spot. The exact same scene as my past life, except my sister chose a different beastman and Father's expression wasn't as pleasant as before. Father said helplessly, "Sable, that firefox was your sister's concession to you. Remember this kindness." I gave a quiet acknowledgement as Zephyr nuzzled against me, his fluffy tail wagging back and forth. His sparkling gaze made me slightly uncomfortable. Noticing my hesitant fascination with his tail, Zephyr simply shoved it into my hands. The fur was impossibly soft, just as I'd imagined, too. As I was about to lead Zephyr back to my courtyard, my younger sister called out, "Sis, why didn't you form a contract with the firefox?" Meeting my sister's eager gaze, I was just about to speak. Zephyr placed his paw on my hand, ripples forming beneath our feet as the pact sealed. Feeling the surging vitality within me, I couldn't help but admire what a genuinely kind-hearted beastman Zephyr was. Unlike Blaze, I thought, shooting a sideways glance at him. The younger sister quickly blocked Blaze. "Sis, you already have the firefox. Must you really compete with me for this one?" I chuckled. "Of course I wouldn't take it from you." In my past life, after forming the pact with Blaze, I discovered he'd tampered with it, changing our equal covenant into a master-servant contract. He became the master, and I the servant. My foolish little sister didn't even notice the loopholes in her contract, but I couldn't be bothered to point it out. Simply taking Zephyr back to the courtyard. I'm still living in the old courtyard. In my past life, when I was forced into the contract with Blaze, Father took pity on me briefly and moved me to a slightly larger compound. But in this life, with Father still fuming, he didn't arrange any alternative residence for me. I watched Zephyr with some concern as he circled the courtyard a few times before rummaging through his storage ring. He pulled out a cushion and placed it by my bedside, settling down comfortably. Guilt crept over me. "Father doesn't value me much, so your cultivation resources might pale in comparison to Blaze's in the future, but don't worry, I'll work hard." Zephyr wagged his tail and nuzzled his fluffy head against my palm. Seeing Zephyr like this lifted my spirits. Zephyr settled into my courtyard just like that, spending days and nights together. I discovered he was truly the most cheerful beastman, never wallowing in self-pity. When courtyard meals grew too plain, he'd drag me up the mountains to hunt. During my nightmares, he'd curl up beside me, offering silent comfort. Watching Zephyr's daily joy somehow eased the lingering pain from my past life. I've become much more cheerful. Father, dissatisfied with Blaze's frailty, spent vast resources sustaining him. My sister also scavenged treasures for Blaze, all to help him overcome his tribulation sooner. But with limited resources to go around, they gave everything to Blaze, leaving me only with a few worthless scraps he'd rejected. I gave Zephyr an apologetic glance. Zephyr was happily gnawing on a chicken leg when he noticed my guilty expression. Promptly stuffing his fluffy tail into my arms with practiced ease, watching his clueless demeanor, I sighed inwardly and resolved to take him out to fend for himself. I'm the invisible one in the family, but I carry memories from my past life. I took Zephyr out for a walk. I've gotten thinner and tanner, while Zephyr has plumped up quite a bit, with a glossy coat that's absolutely stunning. When we returned, we could still hear the servants gossiping. Who knows what the second young mistress was thinking, passing up such a gorgeous firefox for some scrawny white fox. Must be so cozy to hold. Zephyr wagged his tail excitedly as he listened. After pinning down Zephyr's mischievous tail, I spotted my younger sister standing behind the servants. The terrified servants begged my sister for mercy, but she ordered them to be thrown out. She stormed toward me with resentment. "Sable, you must be feeling pretty smug, not wanting to argue with my sister." I shook my head and tried to leave, but she grabbed my arm forcefully. She hissed viciously, "Don't get cocky, Zephyr was just my cast-off, yet you treat him like treasure. Blaze is a nine-tailed fox." My sister's pale wrist bore faint bruises. After a glance, I averted my eyes. As my sister opened her mouth to speak again, a radiant white light suddenly illuminated her courtyard, filling her with ecstatic joy. "Looks like Blaze has overcome his tribulation, well. In this life he's been pampered with the finest things and given priority for all the best resources. No wonder he transcended faster than in his previous incarnation," my younger sister murmured to herself. "See, only I can give him the very best." With that, she excitedly dragged me toward her courtyard. I nearly got pulled down, but thankfully Zephyr's massive tail coiled around my waist. My sister and I stepped into the courtyard where Blaze stood bathed in white light. Squeezing his eyes shut, his tails began sprouting one by one from his back. Amidst the crowd's astonished gazes, 9 magnificent tails unfurled while his previously dull fur began radiating light. The white light intensified as Blaze gradually transformed into human form. Just as in the past life, his appearance was strikingly handsome. 3. After witnessing Blaze's transformation, Zephyr visibly wilted, even refusing his favorite chicken drumsticks. Seeing his fox ears droop, my heart ached as I asked what was wrong. Zephyr lay on the bed sulking, giving me those pitiful puppy-dog eyes. Listening to Zephyr's inner thoughts, I chuckled. "Why compare yourself to Blaze? I'd never dislike you for not being a nine-tailed fox. You're my companion. And one-of-a-kind fire fox." Zephyr perked up happily, gleefully grabbing a chicken drumstick in its mouth. The next day, I found an unfamiliar youth in the house. I panicked momentarily, but sensing his familiar aura, I realized it was Zephyr. Though Zephyr's face was anything but ordinary, radiant and handsome. In my past life when Blaze imprisoned me, I never got to see Zephyr's transformed appearance. Zephyr's fluffy tail swayed behind him, his ears and tail not yet fully retractable. He blushed as he looked at me, and I said, "That's already impressive. I genuinely think Zephyr is remarkable. Without access to family resources and only scarce opportunities for my travels, he managed to achieve transformation in such a short time, proof of his true strength." Watching Zephyr, I grew curious about how his past life's tribulation ended in failure. Something must have gone wrong, but only my younger sister knows the truth. The moment I thought of my sister, I heard her calling me in the courtyard. As Zephyr and I stepped out, we saw my sister and Blaze sitting at the stone table. Spotting us, she froze momentarily before bursting into laughter. "What kind of useless beastman did you pick, sis? Can't even retract his ears and tail properly, not like my Blaze here." Crossing her arms, she sneered, "Perfect timing. Since Zephyr's taken human form, he'll face his tribulation soon. Why don't you kneel and beg me? Maybe I'll have Blaze escort you through it." Malice radiated from her expression, her eyes gleaming with barely contained excitement. "She just can't wait to see me get caught in Zephyr's crossfire and die on the spot, can she?" Seeing me being mocked by my sister, Zephyr's handsome face flushed crimson before he slowly levitated, bathing our entire home in a red glow. My sister's smirk widened as she watched Zephyr writhe in agony. She leaned in close and whispered, "Sister, do you believe in past lives? Because this lifetime of yours is about to end." My sister was utterly convinced I was dead, and she spilled the secret with smug satisfaction. I took a step back, watching Zephyr hovering midair with concern as I clenched the jade pendant in my hand. This pendant was something I stumbled upon by chance. It belonged to the demon god. Possessing it could spare a beastman's life. In this lifetime, nothing bad will happen to Zephyr. I turned to my sister and asked, "What brings you here?" With an arrogant tone, she said, "Sister, I've decided to marry Blaze. You'll give us your blessing, won't you?" She stared at me, searching for any trace of displeasure or pain on my face. To her disappointment, I simply replied, "Congratulations." My sister was visibly annoyed, but the sight of Zephyr hovering midair quickly restored her smug expression, so much so that she completely missed Blaze's condition. Blaze stood trembling, his face ghostly pale as he stared at Zephyr suspended in the air. When Zephyr successfully weathered the tribulation, I finally exhaled in relief, only to notice my palms were bleeding from how tightly I had clenched them. My sister gaped at Zephyr's unscathed form in disbelief, shaking her head and muttering "Impossible" repeatedly. As Zephyr landed, he turned to his sister and Blaze. Blaze's legs gave way, collapsing to his knees. The sister gasped, "You're a nine-tailed fox. Why are you kneeling to him?" The sister grabbed at Blaze, who shoved her away viciously. "Idiot, get lost." Tears welling in her eyes, the sister shouted, "Blaze, I'm your master. How dare you treat me like this?" Blaze sneered, "Fool, I'm the master here." The arriving father overheard this and grabbed Blaze's sleeve, demanding, "What did you say?" With a flick of his wrist, Blaze sent the father flying. The man collapsed, spitting blood. I sneered at the sight before me. In my past life, Blaze secretly tampered with the contract, turning an equal pact into a master-servant bond. He tormented me relentlessly whenever I tried seeking my father's help. Excruciating chest pain would strike the moment I attempted to speak. This lifetime, he pulled the same trick. My sister believed she formed a master-servant contract with him, when in truth she's the enslaved one. Father wanted to reprimand him, but then remembered he's now a nine-tailed fox. Even though my family has always dominated the beastmen, he wouldn't dare confront a nine-tailed fox, but father was furious. He'd never suffered such humiliation before, with his beloved daughter becoming a beastman's servant. His gaze fell upon me. Sable, do you admit your wrongdoing? Hearing this, I could only laugh in silent disbelief. My laughter only fueled father's rage. You insolent girl, what's so funny? Just like your wretched mother. His words stung, stirring anger within me. Seeing my distress, Zephyr quickly pulled me close and materialized his fluffy tail into my arms, stroking the soft fur. My anger subsided somewhat. I met father's gaze coldly. Pray tell, father, what transgression have I committed? Father berated me mercilessly, and Zephyr's expression grew increasingly grim with every word. Father snapped, why didn't you choose Blaze? You've let your sister suffer such humiliation. Blinded by rage, father failed to notice Blaze's darkening expression, likely stirring up those painful memories of past indignities. After a moment's thought, I decided to pour fuel on Blaze's fire. So bonding with Blaze is beneath us. Remember, it was sister's own choice. Unlike her, I've never been father's favorite. How could I dare to choose? My father and sister have thoroughly pissed off Blaze. Coming to her senses, my sister lunged at Blaze. How dare you claim to be my master? Blaze sneered, yanking her hair. You were the one begging to sign a master-servant contract. What's wrong with me playing along? The chaotic scene in the courtyard was giving me a splitting headache. Noticing my weary expression, Zephyr tilted his head thoughtfully before scooping me up and soaring into the sky. Startled by his sudden movement, I found myself airborne and instinctively clung to Zephyr in alarm, yet as the breeze caressed us, an exhilarating lightness filled me. No wonder cultivation fascinates so many. What bliss to have the entire world beneath your feet. Zephyr took me to the mountaintop, where we watched the rolling sea of clouds. I remembered the look Blaze gave Zephyr, along with Blaze's instinctive gestures. After a moment's thought, Zephyr said, after surviving my heavenly tribulation, I received an ancestral memory. The legacy of our Fox clan's war god from 10,000 years ago. I knew of that legendary warrior, the first single-tailed firefox in our clan's history. Despite his unconventional form, his pure bloodline allowed him to rise above even the nine-tailed elites. With the war god's legacy, Zephyr naturally overpowers Blaze. Besides, though Blaze is a nine-tailed fox, he's merely a second-rate one at that. 5. When Zephyr and I returned to Vera's family, we found my sister with swollen cheeks, sobbing as she massaged Blaze's legs. Father stood rigidly with an unpleasant expression. I pinched my palm hard to stifle my laughter at the sight. Father snorted coldly when he saw me return, then left clutching his head. Blaze froze upon seeing Zephyr, then said with a beaming smile, I'm going to marry Vera. That makes you my sister now. The way Blaze lingered on the word sister sent chills down my spine. Unsettled by Blaze's lecherous gaze, I instinctively stepped behind Zephyr for cover, noticing Zephyr shielding me. He casually averted his eyes and pinched his sister's chin. Forgotten to eat, still unsatisfied, he yanked her up and slid his hand beneath her collar, groping without restraint. Disgusted, I quickly pulled Zephyr away. Back in the courtyard, I felt uneasy staring at the cramped house with Zephyr. Having only known Zephyr in fox form, his human appearance now made me strangely uncomfortable. Zephyr chuckled heartily and sprawled across the daybed in the outer room. His tall frame was curled up on the couch, looking rather pitiful. I couldn't bear it and suggested he transform into his fox form to sleep in the den. The moment I said it, Zephyr instantly shifted into that beautiful red fox, his eyes sparkling, but I kept picturing Zephyr in human form. Thank goodness the candles were already out, or I'd have been mortified. In the darkness, I could smell the fresh grass scent on Zephyr. My face flushing with warmth, Zephyr whispered, / let's leave Vera's family. I can protect you and give you a good life, / I remained silent. Part of me wanted to leave Vera's family too. Before, I couldn't. Now that I had the chance, I still couldn't bring myself to go. I want to watch my sister reap what she sows, and see Blaze get the punishment he deserves. And one more thing, I said, Zephyr, we can't leave yet. My mother is still locked in the prayer hall by my father. I can't abandon her. Their marriage was arranged, and my father never cared for her. After her family fell from grace, he seized the first excuse to imprison her. It's been years since I last saw my mother. I miss her terribly. Zephyr fell silent too, sensing my sorrow, then suddenly hopped onto my pillow and nestled close. Zephyr said, / I'll help you, / 6. Zephyr and I racked our brains trying to figure out how to rescue Mother, but none of the plans seemed feasible. Zephyr asked, why can't we just break Mother out directly? It suddenly dawned on me, might makes right. All we needed was to show father that Zephyr was stronger than Blaze. Exhausted beyond measure, I drifted into a heavy sleep. In my drowsy haze, I felt a pair of hands gently embrace me. When I woke the next morning, Zephyr took one look at the dark circles under my eyes and burst out laughing. Furious, I hurled the egg I'd been using to reduce the swelling straight at him. After his laughter subsided, Zephyr reached over and rolled the egg under my puffy eyes himself. Amidst the festive music outside, a servant came in to inform me that my sister was marrying Blaze today and requested my presence. Eager to witness the spectacle, I brought Zephyr along with me. My sister sat before the dressing mirror with utter despair, her exposed skin covered in alarming bruises. When she noticed my entrance, her eyes flickered slightly. "Sister, you're here," she murmured. Seeing her so haggard filled me with wicked satisfaction. I took a seat and watched Madame Chuenfu prepare her for the ceremony, when memories of my past life suddenly surfaced. In our previous lives, my sister lived lavishly, our father doted on her, and even with her useless beastman contract, she kept handsome consorts for pleasure. Had Blaze not awakened as a nine-tailed fox, she would have continued her carefree existence, but in this life, craving greater glory, she stole Blaze from me. Blaze is such a treacherous snake, there's no way she could ever control him, but frankly, she got what she deserved. When I went to rescue her, she repaid my kindness by murdering me to climb the ranks. Or how about that time she pushed her mother into the water as a child, causing her to lose the baby she was carrying, or when she conspired with her birth mother to lock her stepmother in the prayer hall. Of course, it was also due to father's favoritism. He forced mother to register my sister as the legitimate heir while neglecting both mother and me. Every single detail remains etched in my memory. I'm no saint, cross me, and I'll make sure you pay with your life. Perhaps my past life was too wretched, so heaven now repays me by making my tormentors reap what they've sown. I let out a heavy sigh. Blaze entered, his striking crimson wedding attire accentuating his delicate features. Everyone present was dazzled by his beauty, except Zephyr and me. Only I knew the vicious demon lurking beneath that breathtaking beauty. Her eyes lit up with admiration as she gazed at Blaze with infatuation. I couldn't help but sneer. No matter how Blaze tormented her, she seemed willing. But this couldn't go on. Blaze ignored her and instead turned his gaze toward me. A lewd glint flashed in his eyes. But the sight of Zephyr by my side kept him in check. After casting a few furtive glances my way, he sidled up to my sister. Whatever he whispered to her sent my sister into peals of laughter. Watching them like this stirred an uneasy feeling in my chest. That unease deepened as night fell. When a maid came saying mother had taken ill and wished to see me, I hurriedly followed the maid out, but the maid led me deeper into secluded areas, with no sign of Zephyr anywhere. Only then did I realize I'd been tricked, cursing myself for letting my guard down and giving them an opening. Just as I was about to knock the maid unconscious, Blaze suddenly appeared beside her. Blaze smirked wickedly at me, running a crimson tongue across his lips before yanking me into the room. I gasped in alarm. "What are you doing? Zephyr will make you pay for this. He's got his own problems to deal with," Blaze sneered. "Since when does he have time to babysit you?" Confident his plan was working, Blaze released my wrist and sipped his drink, watching amusedly as I desperately tugged at the door. "But someone's locked the door from outside," Blaze said. "Vera told me you belonged to me in your past life. Though this is my wedding day with her, I wouldn't mind consummating our bond first." His lecherous gaze crawled over my body inch by inch, leaving me limp on the floor. "Do you know what happened to Zephyr? I've dosed him with Soulbane. Behave, and I'll spare him." Blaze's words finally made me understand why Zephyr appeared ordinary and failed his heavenly tribulation in his past life. During my time with Zephyr, I've learned much about the Fox clan's ways. When a fox spirit forms a master-servant pact with someone of lower cultivation, their own realm will regress. His past life sister's master-servant contract weakened his cultivation, and combined with the soul-devouring herb, Zephyr never stood a chance against the tribulation, so Blaze had been targeting Zephyr from the very beginning. Blaze lifted my chin and asked, "Well, made up your mind. You're Zephyr, your mother." I shut my eyes in despair. Even in this second life, I'd still fallen into Blaze's clutches. My hands trembled as I began unbuttoning my clothes. Zephyr's voice suddenly cut through. "Then have you decided how you want to die?" My eyes flew open to see Zephyr standing there unharmed. He helped me up with tender care, pulling me into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry I'm late." I shook my head frantically. "No, you're right on time." Blaze turned deathly pale, collapsing to his knees under Zephyr's overwhelming pressure. 7. Zephyr was genuinely furious, sitting in the study with a dark expression, yet his gaze toward me remained tender. His heart ached as he looked at my swollen cheek, then at the scrapes on my hand. Witnessing this, Blaze suddenly slapped himself several times. My sister and father stared in shock, with my sister screaming, "You're a nine-tailed fox," I chuckled. That second-rate nine-tailed fox wouldn't dare act cocky before the war god's heir, little sister. Both my sister and father knew of the Fox clan's war god, indeed, who hadn't heard of his legendary might. My sister stared at Zephyr in shock, a flicker of regret flashing through her eyes. With a single strike, Zephyr shattered Blaze's meridians, sending him writhing on the ground with agonized screams. His sister, serving as his maid, was also implicated but faced no mortal danger. Biting back pain, the sister knelt before Zephyr, cooing apologies while deliberately showcasing her most alluring side, yet Zephyr's gaze remained fixed on me, sparing not a single glance for her. She preened and posed, but found no admiring eyes. The father approached with an ingratiating smile. Son-in-law, truth be told, Vera was meant to form a contract with you. It's just that Sable, taking advantage of being the elder sister, forced Vera to choose Blaze instead. You should have been the one marrying Vera today, all because Sable lacks propriety, Zephyr sneered. Vera's running wild just because she got a second chance at life. Do you take me for a fool? Even if I formed a contract with her, do you think she'd agree to equal terms? I'm certain she was the one who got me killed in my past life. Zephyr accidentally blurted out the truth about their past life. The younger sister flinched before hastily clinging to Zephyr's leg. That's not true at all. It was all our sister. She looked down on Blaze and forced me into the choice. I chuckled. Little sister, you can eat carelessly, but you mustn't speak carelessly. After contracting with Blaze, you've been strutting around like you own the place. Does that look like reluctance to you? My sister was left speechless. Blaze could hold on no longer. He reverted to fox form, his body drenched in blood. Zephyr forced father to release mother, and under pressure, he had no choice but to comply. Hearing father's words, I couldn't bear to stay and look at their faces any longer. Seeing my urgency to meet mother, Zephyr led me away. Before leaving, I glanced at the unconscious Blaze on the ground and said, Little sister, he's still your master after all. Do take good care of him. My sister's expression turned inscrutable, but I paid it no further mind. Zephyr swept me up and flew straight to the temple, with trembling hands. I undid the lock and flung it into the lake. The dim lamplight in the Buddhist hall illuminated my mother, dressed in plain clothes, kneeling before the statue as she devoutly prayed while turning her prayer beads. With sharp hearing, I caught her whisper, May my child be blessed with smooth endeavors and good health. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I choked out, Mother. She whipped around, so thin, so weary, her once jet black hair now streaked with silver. Mother murmured to herself, Is this a hallucination? I think I see my son. I could no longer hold back and rushed forward to embrace my mother. With trembling hands, mother held me tightly. My child, my dear child. 8. I led my mother out of the prayer hall, and we moved into the most luxurious courtyard of Vera's family. Seeing how frail my mother had become, tears welled up in my eyes again. With tender care, my mother wiped away my tears and looked curiously at Zephyr, who'd been protecting me. And this is, Zephyr scratched the back of his head with a guileless smile. I'm Sable's husband, mother lamented with regret. I can't believe I missed my own son's wedding. Zephyr reassured her, No, neither Sable nor I wanted any regrets, so we made special arrangements to bring you here. Mother broke into a radiant smile, gently stroking my head. Having spent too long in the prayer hall, mother's health had deteriorated. Zephyr used spiritual energy to help restore her vitality. I helped mother lie down, and after she fell asleep, I returned to the courtyard with Zephyr. Father wanted to move us to a larger courtyard, but I refused. This courtyard holds all my memories, though most are painful. It contains recollections of mother and me, and of Zephyr too. Zephyr transformed into a fox and tried to slip into his den, but I scooped him up. As he flailed his limbs in the air, I pinched the nape of his neck. Since when were you my husband? Zephyr's ears turned crimson as he stammered, I even let you touch my tail. Don't you know touching a fox's tail means you have to marry them? Zephyr grew agitated. You touched my tail. You're not thinking of skipping out on your responsibility, are you? The excited little fox's fur stood on end. I quickly gathered Zephyr into my arms to soothe him, but as I comforted him, his body suddenly went rigid. Looking down, I saw his eyes glazing over while blood trickled from his nose. After all the commotion, sleep eluded me. Zephyr led me to the rooftop where we gazed at the star-studded sky together. I asked, Why did you let me pet your tail the very first time we met? Zephyr blushed. Don't you remember? I was caught by a hunter when I was being playful, and you saved me. I dug through my memories and recalled that year. It was my mother's birthday. I sneaked out of the estate to buy her a gift and encountered a hunter on the road, carrying a brightly furred firefox. After much haggling, I spent a fortune to buy it, originally intending to make a fur scarf for my mother, but the fox was too small, and my mother, always tender-hearted and averse to killing, would never approve, so I set it free. Glancing at Zephyr, I decided not to tell him the truth. I gazed at the stars with Zephyr for hours before drifting asleep in his arms. When I awoke, my mother was sitting by my bedside, watching me with tender eyes. Father eagerly proposed hosting our wedding with Zephyr in 3 days' time, the most auspicious date on the calendar. True to their reputation as one of the wealthiest families, Vera's clan managed to prepare an extravagant wedding within those 3 short days. Poor Zephyr bore the brunt of it. Mother insisted we couldn't meet before the wedding and kept him at bay for 3 whole days, but Mother worried needlessly. Zephyr respected her wishes, though I could sense him lingering by my window those nights. He never once tried to open it. The day came swiftly. As Mother applied my bridal makeup herself, she fought back tears and whispered, "Knowing you'll be protected puts my heart at ease." Tears streamed down my face. My mother held me and wept for a while before helping me freshen up again. Mother said, / I thought I'd never live to see your wedding day. Thank heavens for this mercy, / indeed. By divine grace, we mother and daughter have finally gained our freedom. 9. After marrying Zephyr, he became even more attached to me. Zephyr and I moved to a more spacious courtyard, sharing meals with my mother daily before taking walks together. I never meant to make things difficult for my sister, but she's been having a hard time. When my sister first brought Blaze home, she lost control of her anger and beat him severely. But since they're bound by a master-servant contract, his injuries became hers as well. At the time, my sister was also injured, so she barely noticed the pain from the whipping. After recovering a few days later, the moment she lashed Blaze, she realized the backlash struck her too. Blaze discovered this phenomenon and began tormenting her daily through self-harm, forcing her submission out of spite. Unable to endure the agony, my sister finally yielded and agreed to tend to Blaze, having tasted the intoxication of power. Blaze became increasingly twisted by the drastic contrast, tormenting his sister daily. The sister was covered in wounds without a single patch of unblemished skin. Though she contemplated resistance, she remained a servant while Blaze was utterly ruthless. Her courtyard became a constant battleground of chaos. She resented me, Zephyr, and even our father. Eventually, even our father stopped visiting her altogether. On Mother's birthday, I made her a bowl of longevity noodles while Zephyr was grilling chicken legs for her. He still adores chicken legs. Father came rushing over shamelessly and plopped himself down at the table. No matter how many dirty looks Zephyr shot him, it was useless. Seeing Zephyr about to lose his temper, I quickly intervened. We were once married. Just let him stay. Deeply moved, Father looked at Mother and me with tearful eyes. I was wrong before. I promised to cherish and protect you both from now on. Smiling, I handed Father a piece of paper. Since it's Mother's birthday today, why don't you give her a special gift? Assuming it was a land deed, Father absent-mindedly took it, only to discover it was divorce papers. Enraged, he tore the document apart. What kind of daughter encourages her own parents to divorce? This is outrageous. Without a word, I handed him another divorce petition. When Father tore it up again, I produced a stack of divorce papers. Tear away, Father. I've plenty more where that came from. Father called me a wretched brat. The moment those words left his mouth, Zephyr's expression turned icy as he fixed his gaze on Father. Zephyr's calm stare carried unspoken menace. Father shuddered before adopting a conciliatory tone. Sable, must we make such a spectacle of this? Mother said. I'm the one demanding this divorce. I've had enough after all these years. If we don't separate, Zephyr cut in, then you'll become a widow. As he spoke, he glanced excitedly at Father, practically itching for action. With no other choice, Father reluctantly signed the divorce papers and stormed out. After receiving the divorce papers, Mother led me inside. When Zephyr tried to follow, she declined his company, saying she needed private words with me. Left with no choice, Zephyr began grilling chicken legs in the courtyard. Seizing the rare moment of Zephyr's solitude, my disheveled sister barged in, attempting to throw herself into his arms. Startled, Zephyr dodged aside, letting her crash heavily onto the ground. The younger sister wailed hysterically, I should be your wife, why won't you have me? Zephyr tried to flee to his mother's room, but his sister clung desperately to his leg, pressing her voluptuous bosom against him. Zephyr cried in despair, Sable, save me, my virtue is at stake. The sister spat angrily, Sable this, Sable that. Can't you see we're the married ones, that slut? Her mother was a whore who birthed a little harlot, always stealing other women's husbands. Zephyr's face darkened at his sister's foul language. He kicked her away forcefully. I never hit women, except for bitches. The sister took a thorough beating, but after enduring Blaze's torment lately, the pain felt like nothing more than a mosquito bite. Gritting through the pain, she tried to embrace Zephyr again, only for him to dart onto the rooftop. Mother and I had seen enough of the show, so we stepped out. My sister glared at us with resentment. Why do you two always insist on stealing other women's husbands? I smiled and said, Mother was Father's lawfully wedded wife, but he took advantage of her pregnancy to have an affair and sire you. As for Zephyr, he's my bonded beastkin. We share the same lifespan. We've exchanged vows before our parents in heaven and earth. He is my husband. With desperate eyes, My sister suddenly drew a knife from nowhere and lunged at me. Die. Sable, then everything can start anew. Just as I was about to kick my sister away, Mother stepped between us. Zephyr swooped down from the rooftop and shoved her aside instead. My sister lay sobbing on the ground. Mother, I pleaded, come with us. Let's leave the capital behind. We could go to the desert, the grasslands, the southern rivers, even the Fox clan's territory. Mother nodded silently and led Zephyr and me inside to pack our belongings. Blaze stood by the doorway, listening to our conversation with a pensive expression. 10. After packing everything up, I found the door wouldn't budge no matter how hard I tried. Blaze cackled madly outside. That's right, when everyone's dead, it all begins anew. I'll still be the nine-tailed fox, just die already. He tied his sister to the side, then doused the entire courtyard with kerosene before setting it ablaze. In the firelight, Blaze's handsome face contorted into something hideous. My younger sister looked utterly entranced, beaming as she echoed, yes, they're all dead, we can start fresh now. Mother seemed nervous at first, but seeing how calmly Zephyr and I carried ourselves, she gradually composed herself. The flames roared fiercely as Blaze and my sister became human torches. Writhing on the ground with screams that somehow twisted into grins, they clung to the illusion of rebirth to keep going. When they were on the verge of death, I shot Zephyr a meaningful look. Amid Mother's startled cry, Zephyr reached out and pushed open the door. The raging flames parted before him like obedient servants, clearing a path. Zephyr shielded us as we faced the two fire-wreathed figures. Blaze was barely recognizable, his form consumed by flames. Why? He gasped in shock. Why? He tried to lunge at us, but his strength had already failed him. We stepped past him and headed out. Just before leaving, I turned back to glare at Blaze and his sister, sneering, fools, Zephyr's a firefox, ordinary flames flee from him. Did you really think you could burn him? Blaze and his sister fell silent forever. They were already dead. Zephyr and I traveled the world with Mother. She grew more vivacious by the day, her whole demeanor rejuvenated. Later, a mischievous fox cub joined our trio, annoying Zephyr so much he couldn't even finish his chicken drumstick. A few more years passed, and another little fox cub had joined the pile on Zephyr's head, tugging at his hair every day. That evening, as our eldest son stole the chicken leg from Zephyr while our daughter kept pulling his hair, he tearfully pleaded, Sable, no more kids, I'll die young at this rate. I chuckled, rubbing my belly. Afraid you're out of luck. Under the sunset, Zephyr's yelps mingled with the children's laughter as their mother gently scolded our daughter to stop tormenting his hair. This lifetime, I'm finally living the life I've always wanted. Story 2. I traveled back to the time just before the start of the apocalypse. In 10 hours, the zombie virus will break out fully. The good news is that the system gave me a spatial ability for free, and I now have a large supermarket, which seems to have an endless supply of goods. The bad news is that I'm weak and vulnerable. In this world where zombies roam freely, powerful ability users are respected, and resources are extremely scarce, I'm like a child carrying gold through a busy marketplace. An ability user could crush me to death with just one finger. 1. I traveled back with a mission. 25 years after the zombie virus outbreak, the global population had decreased to 10% of what it was before the apocalypse. At that time, the environment on the Earth's surface was no longer suitable for human survival. The ground was filled with the virus, miasma, zombies, and all kinds of mutated beasts. There were also acid rains that lasted for 3 years from time to time, or blizzards and tornadoes. Under the leadership of ability users, humans moved into underground cities to survive with great difficulty. Perhaps it was the retribution for the endless pollution and destruction of the Earth's environment by humans over the past 100 years. Since I could remember, I've lost count of how many underground cities I've witnessed being destroyed by mutated rats. Until I was 19 years old, I lived briefly and peacefully for a year in an underground city called Shenyang. Audrey, the highest leader of Shenyang City, is the most capable and approachable leader I've ever met. What's more admirable is that she is an ordinary person without any special abilities and has even lost one arm. Under her leadership, the ability users and ordinary people in Shenyang City lived in harmony. They could not only have enough to eat and wear but also had a much better mental outlook than the residents of other large underground cities. I was extremely grateful that the leader of Shenyang City was someone as capable, courageous, and intelligent as Audrey. But the good days only lasted for a year, and then a traitor appeared in Shenyang City. The invaders led a group of mutated rats and massacred almost all the ordinary residents in the city. Then they branded the ability users with mental marks and tipped them away as slaves. On that day, the once peaceful and harmonious Shenyang City was filled with cries of pain. The corpses piled up like hills, and the blood flowed like a stream. People like me, whose abilities were rather useless, were not originally within the scope of those people's choices. If Audrey hadn't stood out, I would have become the tool for that big guy to satisfy his lust. It was she who, with her last bit of strength, sent me into the secret passage in Shenyang City and then used her own body to block the attacks from those people for me. But unfortunately, even so, I still collapsed and died in that secret passage due to my severe injuries. Only after my death did I know that Audrey was the female protagonist of this world. Under her leadership, everyone in Shenyang City should not have ended up like this. What's more, the world itself should not have ended up like this, and the reason for such an outcome was all because of that invader, that 9th level dual element ability user named James. According to the original world trajectory, the apocalypse should have ended under Audrey's leadership in the 15th year, and the world would have entered a new era from then on. However, James, this supporting character who was punished by Audrey for bullying the weak in the original world trajectory, somehow obtained a chance to be reborn. At the very beginning of the apocalypse, he used a cheat to steal Audrey's dual element abilities. From that moment on, he became the new protagonist of this world, and all the luck and fortune tilted towards him alone. After the death of Audrey, the protagonist who should have saved the world, this world completely collapsed and became James' personal paradise of the apocalypse. After the heavenly Tao system noticed something was wrong, it randomly captured my consciousness, reversed time and space, and sent me back to the time before the apocalypse began, to stop James and set everything right, 9 hours and 45 minutes before the zombie virus outbreak. I finally recovered from the pain and fear of death and understood the purpose of my journey. 9 hours and 30 minutes before the zombie virus outbreak, I took some bread and water from the spatial supermarket to barely fill my stomach and then set off on the journey to Audrey's home. As soon as I left the space, I was shocked by the bustling scene on the street with heavy traffic and people coming and going. I was born in the 6th year of the apocalypse, and I had only heard about this kind of scene from the adults, read about it in books, and seen it in some not-so-well-preserved video materials. People didn't have to worry about the simplest things like food and clothing. Instead, they could freely walk on the street, chatting and playing with their good friends. The streets were full of various snack shops, beverage stores, and restaurants. All the delicious foods that people were holding in their hands or depicted on the flyers were things I had never heard of or seen before. If the year I lived in Shenyang City was a rare period of peace and tranquility, then everything in front of me was a scene of prosperity and liveliness that shocked me to the extreme. So, this is what the world was like before the apocalypse. Just thinking that in less than 10 hours, this prosperous scene in front of me would be destroyed by bloodshed and violence, my mood became indescribably low and gloomy. But more than that, it was hatred for James. If it weren't for him, the apocalypse could have ended in the 10th year, 9 hours before the zombie virus outbreak. I got on the bus heading to Audrey's home in the city center. There were also buses in the apocalypse, but they didn't run on diesel or gasoline. Instead, they consumed the abilities of lightning element ability users. If you wanted to take the bus, you needed to pay one first-level crystal core. I had only taken it in Shenyang City. In other underground cities where ability users were respected, this kind of transportation that consumed abilities was exclusive to high-level ability users. And someone like me, a useless ability user, would never have the chance to use it. I sat in a seat by the window. On the one hand, I was admiring the last scenery before the apocalypse with an indescribable feeling, and on the other hand, I was excited in my heart about meeting the young Audrey soon. What would the young Audrey, the chosen protagonist who would save the world from disaster in the future, look like, too? Isn't it just one college entrance examination? Do you really have to treat me like an enemy? Your younger brother is still young. Besides, he has already admitted his mistake. Why do you have to be so petty? Fine. If you can't stand it in this home, then get out. I want to see what kind of achievements you can make without a single penny. That was the 18-year-old Audrey, silent, gloomy, and thin. It was as if a dark cloud was hovering over her, and there was no sign of the liveliness and cheerfulness of her peers. In her, I couldn't see the open-mindedness and magnanimity of the 25-year-later Audrey, nor the youthful enthusiasm of the protagonist that I had expected. The 18-year-old Audrey grew up in an extremely patriarchal family. Since childhood, she had been reduced to a nanny for her half-brother, under the torment of her biological father and stepmother. She regarded the college entrance examination as her only hope. She had thought that she could escape from this hell after the college entrance examination. Who would have thought that she would be locked in the basement of her home by her naughty younger brother and thus miss one of the main subjects in the exam? After the college entrance examination, Audrey had a big argument with her biological father who had just returned from a business trip. As a result, she was mercilessly kicked out of the house. I followed Audrey all the way. I was thinking about how to organize my words when I saw her go around to the back of the villa, pick up a stone casually, aim at one of the windows of the villa, and throw it. The glass shattered with a bang. She turned around, and her beautiful dancing eyes stared at me coldly. "What are you following me for?" My mouth spoke faster than my brain. "In less than 6 hours, the zombie virus will break out. You won't get into trouble even if you kill them now." Audrey's delicate eyebrows slowly furrowed. "You little slut, are you rebelling?" Audrey's biological father and stepmother appeared behind the broken window and cursed at Audrey. Audrey bent down and picked up a bigger stone, preparing to throw it. I volunteered and grabbed it. Let me do it. After all, I had experienced the hardships of the apocalypse. That stone accurately hit Audrey's father's greasy face. Blood spattered at once, and he let out an "ah" and fell down. I showed off to Audrey. "Look, I'm accurate, right? Once when we went out to search for supplies in the apocalypse, I used this accuracy to shoot down an arrow that was aimed at Audrey, and I even received her praise. But the Audrey in the apocalypse would praise me, while the 18-year-old Audrey just looked at me with an indescribable and terrifying gaze. Honey, you little slut, do you have any conscience at all? That's your own father." Audrey's stepmother was hysterical at the window, and her younger brother was crying as if his father had really died. Audrey took a deep breath and then turned around and ran. She ran 2 steps and then came back to drag me. "What are you standing there for? Run." At first, she was pulling me to run, but later it became me pulling her. We climbed out of the villa area and ran all the way to the riverside. Only then did she collapse to the ground. "Do people who come out of your mental hospital all have as much energy as you?" I pulled her up from the ground and pushed her. "Don't sit on the ground, get up and walk around to recover." Audrey was panting heavily and gave me a thumbs up. "You even teach this? It's quite professional in your hospital." I didn't explain too much and just said, "After 6 hours, you'll know whether what I said is true or false." Audrey still didn't believe it, but it didn't matter. The fact that she was willing to wait with me for 6 hours was enough. As the sun set in the west and the sky gradually darkened, the wind blowing from the river gradually carried the smell of blood. Audrey lifted her watch and her expression became serious. "It's 7 o'clock, your hospital has a lot of calls." Ah, a shrill scream pierced the sky, followed by a loud bang. The vehicles on the bridge over the river crashed into each other like bumper cars. The honking of car horns, screams, cries of pain, curses, and sobs mixed together, playing the prelude to the arrival of the apocalypse. "Help, save me, that person is crazy." A man covered in blood fled from somewhere. He was limping and running towards us in panic. However, before he could run a few steps, an old man suddenly rushed out from behind and pounced on him, knocking him to the ground. Save me." Black blood oozed from the man's mouth, and his red eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. He was still reaching out to us in the last moment of his life. Audrey finally couldn't hold back and was about to step forward when I grabbed her. "He's beyond saving. Once infected, in at most 5 minutes, he will definitely turn into a zombie." The man had already been bitten when he first appeared, and the redness of his eyes was a sign that he was turning into a zombie. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw the old man who had been feasting on the man suddenly stop. He raised his head and stared straight at us with his cloudy, blood-red eyes. His upper lip had been torn by someone, revealing his red gums. There were still pieces of bloody meat hanging from his false teeth, which made people feel nauseous. He let out a strange ho-ho sound from his throat, and in response, the man lying on the ground made a crack sound as his twisted limbs moved. These two creatures that could no longer be called human beings, with their 2 pairs of eyes emitting a blood-red light, then rushed towards us quickly. Audrey grabbed my hand and tried to run in the opposite direction. I held her back. In the last second before the claws of those 2 zombies grabbed us, I fell backward neatly. The disgusting smell of blood from the zombies still lingered at the tip of my nose. But the surrounding environment had already changed to the first floor of the spatial supermarket. Audrey was caught off guard and fell to the ground, her chest heaving continuously. "Where is this? This is my space." I stood up and pulled her up from the ground. "Now, do you believe what I said?" Three days after the zombie virus outbreak, Audrey and I were fully armed and climbed into the villa area where she lived. The gate of the villa area had been smashed open, which caused zombies to wander everywhere at the entrance and in the community. The exquisitely luxurious villa area before the apocalypse was now desolate and dilapidated. When Audrey and I sneaked in through the window that she had smashed open 3 days ago, we just heard Audrey's stepmother Savannah cursing. "I told you that your daughter is a jinx. Look, I don't know where she met some shady people. And she actually dared to attack her own father." She paced around the living room restlessly. "Say something. Look at the situation outside. There are those man-eating monsters everywhere. In a few days, there will be no food left in the house. What are we going to do then?" Audrey's father lay feebly on the sofa, his face extremely pale. "What can we do? I'm in this state. How should I know what to do? It's all that bitch's fault." Audrey's father sat up straight from the sofa, held the wound on his head that had been bandaged, and cursed Audrey viciously. The words he used were so vicious that it was hard to imagine that he and the bitch, whore, and money-losing good-for-nothing he was cursing were actually father and daughter. The couple in the living room took Audrey as their punching bag and spewed out all kinds of foul language. Even as an outsider, I found it unbearable, but Audrey herself had an expressionless face. You stay here and keep an eye on them. I'll go and pack my things. The reason she came back this time was to pack the things left to her by her biological mother before she passed away. Besides, she wanted to settle the score with these two people during the apocalypse. Who are you? How did you get in here? I was waiting in the corridor when the door beside me suddenly opened, and a chubby boy of about 7 or 8 years old rushed out holding a toy gun. Mom and Dad, that little slut is back. How did you get into my house? Get out now. Audrey's father and Savannah hurried upstairs and just saw Audrey coming out of the room. Audrey's father said angrily, "Bitch, how dare you come back?" Audrey's face was cold. "This is my home. Why wouldn't I dare to come back?" Savannah supported Audrey's father and said with a heartbroken expression, "Your friend beat your father into such a state. Don't you feel any guilt?" The toy gun in the little boy's hand was aimed at me, and his expression was sinister. "You hit my father. You're in the same group as this slut. You're also a slut." I was eager to try. "Audrey, how do you want to deal with them? I can't beat ability users, and I can't beat high-level zombies either, but beating 3 ordinary people with thin skin and brittle bones is simply a piece of cake for me." A hint of a smile flashed in Audrey's eyes. "I don't need you." Her voice turned cold. "I'll do it myself." Audrey's father was so angry that he was shaking. "Rebellion, rebellion, Audrey. I'm your father." In reply to him was a kick from Audrey. Audrey's father directly tumbled down the stairs. Savannah let out a scream and was about to pounce on Audrey, but she quickly stopped her action because I grabbed her weak point, her chubby son. "Let me go, you little slut, you little whore, let me go." The boy struggled desperately in my hands. When Savannah saw the cold blade in my hand, her legs went weak, and she almost knelt on the ground. "Let go of my son." I ignored her and just restrained the mother and son pair to prevent them from interfering with Audrey's revenge. Audrey's biological mother committed suicide due to severe depression, and the root cause of all this was Audrey's father, that scumbag. After Audrey's grandparents passed away one after another, Audrey's father, who had been playing the role of a good son-in-law, received most of the inheritance. From then on, he no longer concealed his true nature, tore off the masks of a good son-in-law, a good husband, and a good father, and revealed his inherently selfish and cold-blooded true face. He resorted to cold violence and PUA. Sometimes he even laid hands on Audrey's mother in front of Audrey. Audrey's mother had been in poor health. When Audrey was 5 years old, she became pregnant again. She had thought that this could win back her husband's heart. But who would have expected that Audrey's father didn't care about the child in her belly at all? He even blatantly brought Savannah back home. Audrey's father and Savannah lingered on their marital bed, which made Audrey's mother so angry that she had a miscarriage. The next day, Audrey's mother jumped off the building of the hospital. Audrey had hated Audrey's father deeply since she was a child, but at that time, she was just a child and had to make a living under the hands of Audrey's father and Savannah. What could she do? She had thought that after the college entrance examination, it would be a turning point in her life, and from then on, she would have a bright future and there would always be a chance for her to avenge her mother, who knew that this path was also ruined by her half-brother. Now that the zombie virus has broken out and the apocalypse has arrived, she has nothing to worry about anymore. Savannah was still crying. "You're trying to kill your father. How could there be a daughter like you?" Audrey didn't go for the kill. She wasn't the battle-hardened leader of Shenyang City in the future yet, so even though she used all her strength to vent her anger and beat Audrey's father until he was on the ground, he still had the strength to shout, "You little slut, just wait until your father recovers. See if I don't beat you to death." Audrey stepped on his greasy face and grounded hard. "Then let's talk about it when you survive." I threw Audrey's father, Savannah, and their son out of the villa. This villa was Audrey's mother's dowry. After Audrey's mother passed away, it fell under Audrey's name. Therefore, it was perfectly reasonable for her to take back her house and drive away these irrelevant people. "You're trying to let us die. Audrey, how can you be so heartless? Aren't you afraid of retribution?" When they were driven out, Audrey's father, supported by Savannah, was still gnashing his teeth at Audrey. "Were you afraid of retribution when you and she killed my mother?" Audrey sneered. "You won't be able to see my retribution, but I'll soon see yours." The door closed, and the pleading voices of the couple outside the door immediately sounded. "Audrey, Audrey, Dad knows he was wrong. Open the door, open the door. Audrey, it's Auntie's fault. Auntie is sorry. You can hit me or scold me, but please open the door and let Auntie in." Those monsters will eat people. Their son was still making a fuss. I want to go in, you little slut, let me in. In fact, there were no zombies around this villa. As long as they were quiet and found a new shelter before dark, they could survive. But the problem was that it was only the third day since the outbreak of the apocalypse. Audrey's 7-year-old brother, who had been pampered since childhood, didn't realize at all what kind of situation he was in after his shout. I soon heard the roars of zombies not far away, as well as the urgent pleading voices of Savannah and Audrey's father. Then, heart-wrenching screams came from outside the door, for, when Audrey and I left, there were already 3 fresh zombies in front of the villa. I couldn't keep Audrey in the spatial supermarket all the time. The Heavenly Dow system had placed a restriction on the space it gave me, except for the first 3-day adaptation period. Later, Audrey could only stay in the spatial supermarket for 8 consecutive hours. If she stayed for more than 8 hours, she would be expelled. Of course, this restriction was specifically for people other than me. After all, Audrey was the protagonist. She had to go through all kinds of hardships, draw experience from them, and gradually grow into a leader who could shoulder heavy responsibilities, so she couldn't, like me, just slack off in the spatial supermarket all the time. After 12 o'clock today, it would be the 4th day since the start of the apocalypse, so we had to find a safe foothold as soon as possible. After leaving the villa area, Audrey took me to another house under her name. The house was located in an old residential area far from the city center. There were quite a few elderly zombies scattered in the community. Audrey and I didn't spend much effort and entered her home before dark. This was the former residence of her grandparents and also her shelter. Usually, whenever she had a quarrel with Audrey's father and Savannah, she would move here to live. The house was large, with a layout of 3 bedrooms and 1 living room, clean and spacious. In the early days of the apocalypse, there was still water and electricity. After we washed up respectively, we spent the first night safely in this house. Early the next morning, I was awakened by a huge dull sound outside the window. Someone had jumped off the building. The house was on the 4th floor, and I could clearly see the twisted body beside the flower bed downstairs. It was an old man who had lost a leg. The zombies, attracted by the sound, swarmed up and instantly submerged the old man's body. 3 minutes later, the group of zombies dispersed, and the old man came back to life. Since he had lost a leg, he could only crawl aimlessly on the ground. I let out a sigh, but Audrey was silent for a long time. After a while, she asked, "Is there really no possibility of curing this virus?" No. In my previous life, even the highest-ranked 9th-level healing ability users could only slow down the rate at which the infected turned into zombies and couldn't completely eliminate the virus. I said, "Only a very small number of people will awaken their abilities after being bitten." I told Audrey that I was someone who had been reborn, because she had saved me in my previous life. I had come to find her in this life. The zombie virus had already broken out, and she had also seen my spatial supermarket with her own eyes, so she accepted the fact that I was reborn quite well. Then in the previous life, when did the apocalypse end? I was silent for a moment. It didn't end, in my previous life, until I died. Humans were still living in dire straits and had to constantly be on guard against being killed by zombies and various mutated animals. In the 10th year of the apocalypse, a saying began to spread among the survivors. The zombie virus was a cleansing of humanity by the earth, but the Heavenly Dow system told me that rather than a cleansing, it was more like an evolution, survival of the fittest. Audrey and I stayed in this house for a total of 3 months. She didn't blindly rely on my spatial supermarket. Instead, after mastering the skills of killing zombies, she chose to go out and search for supplies on her own. I didn't know when she would encounter James, so every time I would follow her and help store the supplies she found. The zombies in the first 2 months were still easy to deal with, as long as we mastered the skills and didn't encounter a large-scale zombie horde. Although it was occasionally strenuous, we could always come back safely each time. But 2 months later, the zombies began to show signs of evolution. They learned to climb, open doors, jump long distances, lie in ambush. Moreover, some of them had even evolved abilities. There was a long-jumping zombie 1 kilometer away from the community. In a few days, this community with only 7 floors would fall. This place was no longer safe. Audrey and I planned to move to a commercial building 5 kilometers away from the community. It had just been renovated and hadn't opened for business yet. We had been there several times when searching for supplies, because there was a small wave of zombies gathering around. There were only some staff zombies scattered inside, which was relatively safe. Before leaving, Audrey informed the neighbors across the door. The neighbors were an old couple with a granddaughter who had just turned 10. The old couple had taken good care of the young Audrey before, so after the apocalypse, when Audrey went out to search for supplies, she would always give them some help within her ability. I didn't stop her. The sinister nature of people and the various aspects of the world in the apocalypse were all experiences for Audrey. As I expected, the old couple didn't want to take the risk, but they wanted Audrey to take their granddaughter away. Grandpa and Grandma, I want to stay with you. I'm not leaving. The old couple had protected their granddaughter well. This was the first time I saw the little girl. As soon as I saw her face clearly, I was overjoyed. Isn't this the team leader? Before I went to the Shenyang underground city led by Audrey, I was responsible for searching for supplies in a large underground city. The team leader of my team was a 5th-level water element ability user. She had a withdrawn personality and was cold, but she protected the team members under her very much. After that underground city was breached by mutated rats, she protected several of us team members and went to seek refuge in the Shenyang underground city. As a result, when we were almost at the destination, she was burned to death by 2 4th-level fire element zombies. Let's go together. It's daytime now, and the weather is so hot that the zombies move slowly. If we're careful and go in through the back door of the mall, nothing will happen, I said. Audrey gave me a surprised look but didn't say anything. Okay, the old man of the couple, whose brows had been furrowed, relaxed and said as if he had made up his mind, we'll just follow behind you. If there's any accident on the way, you don't have to worry about us 2 old people. Even with Audrey's occasional help, the 2 old people were very thin. The little team leader with tears in her eyes still wanted to say something, but was stopped by the old woman. A quarter of an hour later, the 5 of us were fully armed and carefully walked out of the community gate. Audrey led the way, the grandparents protected the little team leader and walked in the middle, and I brought up the rear. 5. There were quite a few people in the community watching. Some people wanted to follow, but when they saw that we were bringing 2 old people and a child, they shrank back. Some people were even mocking, taking these 2 old people will only hold you back. They'll surely be bitten to death by zombies as soon as they leave the community gate. But in fact, under the big sun, the zombies moved slowly, and Audrey and I had cleared most of the zombies on the way from the community to the mall, so halfway through the journey, we didn't encounter many zombies. It wasn't until we turned a corner and saw the roof of the mall that we encountered a small wave of zombies. The 2 old people took the little team leader and hid around the corner. Audrey and I went up to deal with them. More than a dozen zombies soon fell. Just as I was about to go back and call them, I heard a short scream. When I ran over to take a look, I saw a completely rotten, big-bellied zombie lying on the ground. The old man was panting heavily, and the machete in his hand was still embedded in the zombie's skull. The old woman covered her granddaughter's mouth and shrank in the corner. Although her eyes were full of fear, her expression was still relatively calm. Fortunately, this was just an ordinary 1st-level zombie. Otherwise, the 3 grandparents and grandchildren would have been in trouble. After that, things went smoothly. The number of zombies in the mall was very small, and they were all ordinary zombies. I don't know if killing a zombie just now gave the grandpa confidence. He held a long-handled machete and protected in front of the grandma and the little team leader, and successively killed 3 more zombies. We cleared the zombies as we went up. When we finally reached the 8th floor, there were chattering voices coming from upstairs. My heart tightened. I exchanged a look with Audrey, and we both saw shock and vigilance in each other's eyes. We had come all the way up and found no signs of anyone having been here. Could they have come in through the zombie horde at the front door, or were they ability users? Come up quickly. I looked in the direction of the voice and met a face that couldn't be more familiar. The man was handsome, with furrowed brows, and looked full of righteousness. Did you come in through the back door? Are there many zombies at the back door, James? Almost instantly, the anger and hatred surging in my heart made me unable to control myself and want to rush up and kill him, but thinking of the warning from the Heavenly Tao system, I could only forcibly suppress it. When I first traveled back, I thought about killing James the first moment so that the whole world would follow the original track. But the Heavenly Tao system didn't allow it. It told me that as the protagonist, Audrey was destined to go through many hardships, and James's existence was also a kind of experience for her. I just needed to destroy the cheat in James's hand that could steal other people's abilities and didn't belong to this world. It happened that this cheat was hidden very tightly by James. For half a month in a row, I couldn't find the slightest flaw in him. During these half a month, Audrey, the old couple, the little team leader, and I all lived on the 18th floor of this building. From the 1st to the 10th floor of the building, there were all kinds of luxury stores, as well as a gym, a swimming pool, a boxing gym, and so on. Above the 10th floor were the renovated offices waiting to be rented out. James was now a 2nd-level ability user with both water and wood element abilities. He led a small group of about 30 people and was stationed on the 13th floor. He was particularly enthusiastic about Audrey and would send some supplies up from time to time to please her, but Audrey wasn't very interested in him. Every day, besides going to the boxing gym on the 9th floor to practice boxing, she would drag me to exercise my reaction ability. James didn't care either. He simply used a roundabout tactic and went to give supplies to the little team leader's grandparents. Of course, he was still refused. The cold and aloof team leader who used to teach me how to kill zombies, take care of me, and protect me was now a 10-year-old girl. That feeling was really novel. Besides sparring with Audrey and keeping an eye on James every day, I would also go to tease the little team leader. At night, after dinner, the little team leader and I sneaked up to the rooftop together to look at the stars. She asked me, "Sister Violet, don't you like James?" "How do you know?" As I spoke, I reached into my pocket. In fact, I took out a strawberry-flavored lollipop from the spatial supermarket and handed it to her. The little team leader obediently took it, peeled off the candy wrapper, and handed it back to me, saying, "I can tell, every time you see James, you pull a long face." I was at a loss for words. "Is it that obvious?" The little team leader nodded seriously. "Yes, it is." I handed her another milk-flavored lollipop. "Well, you've seen through it. I really don't like James." "Why?" Suddenly, a clear female voice rang in my ears. The little team leader and I were startled. We turned around and met Audrey's beautiful and indifferent face. "What did James do to make you angry?" Audrey looked at me seriously. "I'll help you get revenge." I almost blurted out that James coveted her dual-element abilities, but it was only the 6th month of the apocalypse. Audrey was temporarily just a strong and healthy ordinary person and hadn't awakened her abilities yet. Moreover, the Heavenly Tao system didn't allow me to reveal too much. I sighed and came up with an idea. I put on an indignant look and said, "He always clings to you. He's interested in you because of your looks, and I simply don't like him." Audrey nodded understandingly. "I see. Then I'll tell him not to come to the 18th floor anymore." After she finished speaking, she patted my shoulder. "Have you digested your food? Let's go to the boxing gym and have a sparring match." I was still in shock, thinking, is it really that simple? When I was defeated by this sentence, "have a sparring match." Audrey is indeed the protagonist. She has made rapid progress in the past 6 months. Her moves are fierce, and I, who have lived in the apocalypse for 19 years, can hardly keep up with her. After each sparring match, I always have to spend a day recovering in bed. I made a bitter face, and the little team leader imitated Audrey and patted my shoulder. "Take care, Sister Violet." A mischievous thought crossed my mind, and I grabbed her. "You can't run away either. You have to train with me too." 6. Audrey's abilities were awakened on a rainy night. The gate of the building was breached by second-level zombies, and a large number of zombies rushed in. While we were fighting against the zombies together, Audrey was pushed out when she was saving a thin and small man. A second-level wood element ability user in James' team managed to pull her back in time, but Audrey's arm was still scratched. After repelling the zombie horde, Audrey had a high fever and fell into a coma. Her symptoms were very similar to those of turning into a zombie. Her face was pale, her body was stiff and cold, and the wound was black. I've never seen anyone awaken their abilities like this. Has she already turned into a zombie? I think so too. She looks really scary like this. I held Audrey's hand tightly. I wasn't too worried in my heart because I knew that James wouldn't let anything happen to Audrey before her abilities awakened. Sure enough, as soon as the person finished speaking, James stood up. "We'll know whether it's a zombie transformation or an ability awakening tomorrow." James looked deep into my eyes and stared straight at Audrey in my arms. "You've all worked hard today. I'll keep watch tonight, and I'll take care of Audrey." I took a deep breath and showed a relaxed smile. "Okay, then James, I'll leave Audrey to you." Heaven knew how hard I tried to suppress the killing intent in my heart when I said this. The little team leader's incredulous gaze almost saw through me. Fortunately, her grandparents held her back. After leaving that room, the little team leader was extremely anxious. "Sister Violet, why did you leave Sister Audrey to James?" Her grandfather quickly pulled her back. "Your Sister Violet must have her own considerations. Don't be nosy." The little team leader pouted, looking very unconvinced, but she didn't dare to say anything. Her hands were almost twisted into a knot. I stroked her head. "Don't worry, your Sister Audrey will be fine." That night, while James was going to treat his injuries, I sneaked into the room where Audrey was and then entered the spatial supermarket. I watched over Audrey through the surveillance video inside. Half an hour later, James pushed open the door of the room and slouched down by the bedside. He laughed heartily. "You didn't expect this, did you, Audrey? You've finally fallen into my hands one day." His dirty hands slapped Audrey's face hard, and he clicked his tongue. "You're quite good looking. If I didn't find you disgusting in your current state, I'd really like to have some fun with you. I felt like vomiting when I heard this. This James was originally a pervert. In the original plot, he was killed by Audrey because he forced women. After being reborn, he stole Audrey's dual element abilities and became a powerful figure. The lightning element ability made him strong and invulnerable, and the spiritual element ability made him seem harmless and popular among people. He led a group of vicious bandits to burn, kill, and loot everywhere, committing all kinds of atrocities. The dangerous apocalypse became his amusement park, and all humans were either his helpers or his playthings. I knew that James had a bad personality, but I didn't expect him to be so unscrupulous. He actually entertained himself in front of the unconscious Audrey. The scene was too disgusting. Fortunately, the Heavenly Dao system could censor and mute it, otherwise I might get a sty in my eye on the spot. I didn't dare to look away, for fear that the scumbag James would do something to Audrey. Finally, James finished, and Audrey was awakened by James' voice. The paleness on her face had already faded and turned into a rosy color. "James, what are you doing here? Where's Violet?" James pulled up his pants and sneered. "She left you to me." Audrey struggled to get up from the bed and looked at him with a look of disgust, as if looking at a bug. "You're lying." "Violet wouldn't leave me alone." Hearing this, a strong sense of guilt welled up in my heart. "James was complacent, but she did leave you to me. She's also afraid that you'll turn into a zombie." Audrey glared at him fiercely, and there was a faint flash of electricity in her eyes. James smiled. "You've finally awakened your abilities. It's been worth waiting for so long." A dazzling white light emanated from his hand. He grabbed Audrey's arm and laughed grimly. "Soon, it will all be mine." "That's when I left the space, James." "You're shameless." The sparring matches with Audrey these days were still useful. At least I caught James off guard and suppressed him severely in a short time. I used the Heavenly Dao system to destroy the cheat in his body that could steal other people's abilities, but I'm just an inexperienced fighter. After all, James was a water and would dual element ability user. When he reacted, it was me who was suppressed. I could only try my best to hold James back and pray that Audrey would recover quickly and use her abilities to blast James away. I destroyed James' cheat, and in a fit of rage, he tried to kill me. When I was almost unable to hold on, a brilliant light finally flashed before my eyes. Bang! Smoke was coming out of James' head. He stood there in a daze, his eyes full of disbelief. However, he didn't have a chance to say another word. His body stiffened, and he fell straight down. Just as I was about to heave a sigh of relief, I was suddenly blinded by a sharp pain in my chest. I looked down and saw an ice spike inserted into my chest. "Violet, how do you feel?" My body's senses were gradually fading. I heard Audrey's crying voice. In a blur, I saw tears streaming down her face, but I didn't even have the strength to raise my hand. I died. My last thought before death was that it was a pity I hadn't asked the Heavenly Dao system whether I could transfer the spatial supermarket or move the things in the spatial supermarket out and store them for Audrey and the little team leader. There were also many delicious foods in the spatial supermarket that I hadn't tasted yet. I had thought that I could stay by Audrey's side for a long time. With such regret, I seemed to have slept for a very long time. When I woke up again, I saw the white ceiling. "Are you awake? How do you feel?" I looked at the team leader with a much softer expression in a daze. On that day, the originally peaceful and tranquil Shenyang city was filled with cries of pain. The corpses piled up like hills, and the blood flowed like a stream. New, truly feeling the warmth of her palm, I finally believed that I had returned to the 25th year of the apocalypse. No, to be more precise, it should be the 15th year since the beginning of the new world. This time, without the protagonist Audrey losing her dual element abilities, she ended the apocalypse in a shorter time and led the remaining ability users and ordinary people to start a new world. The little team leader who used to call me Sister Violet was already 35 years old this year. She was a 6th level water element ability user and now the general manager of a water supply company, and Audrey, who was 43 years old, had already stepped down from the position of the highest leader and was enjoying her life. In this life, I was also born in the 6th year of the apocalypse. When I was 4 years old, that is, in the first year after the apocalypse ended, Audrey rescued me from the black market and adopted me. The new world has not only restored the prosperity before the apocalypse, but everything is developing in a better direction. I stood by the window of the hospital, looking at the bustling and lively streets outside, and couldn't help but feel tears welling up in my eyes. "Your mother has gone to buy the lotus root and sparerib soup that you like. Don't you have to look so eager?" I was a bit confused. "My mother?" The team leader nodded matter-of-factly. "Yes, your mother, Audrey, Violet." The 43-year-old Audrey still looked elegant and came in with a lunchbox in her hand, smiling. "See what Mom has brought you." I lamented in my heart but showed joy on my face. "It's lotus root and sparerib soup. Everything in the new world is great, except for the fact that Audrey has become my mother."